Welcome back to another video episode. I'm back in Colorado today. I need to make the entrance doors to the barn. There's going to be a total of four of them to be made. Actually, one I will probably just purchase already made or salvage from a job that I'm doing. But the three wooden doors, I want them to look like they were maybe from this historic period. Now, I'm lost my source for being able to get lumber to cut here in Colorado. So what I did is I brought back 2 logs from Arkansas with me that I was going to use as replacement logs on the cabin, but don't really need them for that. So I'm going to go ahead and cut those into lumber. I will surface them down to probably 5/8 of an inch thick. So I'll have 5/8 on the inside and outside, and then sandwich in between them a piece of 1/2 inch exterior grade plywood. That should have me taken care of. So this episode I'm going to spend either prepping or building those doors. I'm heading back to Arkansas next week, so that if I have anything built, I'll go ahead and bring it with me, and if I don't, it'll have to be on another trip. I'll go ahead and get these boards preserved with Boracare, and I'm mixing at a mixture of about 4 parts water to 1 part Boracare, since this is new lumber. If it's something that's already infested with insects, then a 1-to-1 or a 2-to-1 mixture is needed. But since this is new lumber, it's just something to prevent or at least inhibit things from happening in the future. Okay, I've got the boards that I've cut so far sprayed. I got 1 more log I'll have to cut. That I cut already is enough to do 1 side of 1 door and about half of the other side. So I'll probably have enough here to do 2 doors when it's all said and done. I'm not going to bore you with doing the sawmilling on this one. I've also got a piece of cedar, one of the cedar trees that I cleared out for the solar system. And I brought back about an 8-foot section of that I'm going to go ahead and saw into lumber too. I just love looking at it, although it's not a very pretty log to start with. It'll still make a little bit of pretty lumber, at least in some narrower widths. I'll be back with you when I bring my surfacer down, and I'll start surfacing one side of the board to make everything an even thickness. All right, I'm back in Colorado on what will probably be my longest break from Arkansas since I purchased the property back in June of 2020. Trying to get some work done here for there, and that means building the front door to the barn. Now, I want the outside of the barn to appear that it was period built in the late 1800s, just like the cabin was, or mid 1800s. But I want it to be efficient enough that there are no air gaps that go all the way through the door like what might have been back then, just for heating efficiency and such. This will actually be, the door will connect to my wood shop, which will be finished on the inside. So on this door, I am going to want a finished product, a finished looking product, both on the inside and outside of the building. I want a total thickness door of 1 3/4 inches. So what I'm going to do is sandwich 2 layers of these pine boards, and between those I'll put a sheet of 1/2 inch treated plywood, and that should pretty much seal up the contents of the door. I had sawed on the mill here these down to a thickness of 3/4 of an inch, And for an 1 3/4 thick door, I need 5/8 on the back, 5/8 on the front, and a 1/2 inch in the middle to bring me to an 1 3/4. So what I'm doing is I'm surfacing the back side. Now on these boards, don't know if I can get close enough, you can see it in the sun here or not, but we have a rough sawn side on the outside and a smooth side on the inside. I've got one last pass to make on this last board. The rest of them are done. So I'll go ahead and do that now. Next step now will be to rabbet the edges, the front on one edge, the back on the other edge. And what that'll do is give me a shiplap to where when you look in the space in between the boards, and there will be a little space, all you'll see is the wood from the pine boards and not the plywood that's sandwiched in between them. There does need to be probably an 1/8 of an inch gap between boards to allow for expansion and contraction because of moisture. And I want to account for that so I don't end up with a warped door. So next step is taking out the router and rabbeting some edges. All right, that has one edge done. I'll flip it over and do the back side on the other edge. I am nearly out of light today, so this is the only one I'm going to do. I'll have to get back to those in a couple of days. It's supposed to rain and maybe snow tomorrow, so I probably won't get much outside work done. What I will do is I'll go ahead and pull my straight edge and we'll take a closer look at the profile. Okay, you can see here on the left side that I have cut out of the back side of the board, a rough sawn finish on top, and then the same rabbet on that side. A little bit hard to see. The one on the underside, I cut back just a little bit farther than I did on the face side, and I cut them both just a little over halfway, just so there wouldn't be a space here on the back side of the board to split when I put it in place. I'll be back in a couple days. We'll take a look at the fit once I get all these done and I start the assembly. Thanks for your help, Gabby. Okay, something that I had mentioned in a couple of previous videos, one when I was building the stair section that I built, and then also in a couple of other doors that I built, is in order for a door to lie flat, it is extremely important that your surfaces are in the same plane, the sawhorses in this case, that they are flat, so your door lies flat. If you have one sawhorse that's down like that and another one that's up like that, you're going to end up with a twisted door. Twisted doors to me just are really, really irritable. Twisted doors to me just are really, really irritable, and they happen with the factory built ones too. Probably not so much because of the construction, but because of how they're stored afterwards. There are a couple of ways of doing it. If you've got a good eye for level, you can stand back, squat down, and look across the tops of things and see if you're in the same plane. If you don't have a good eye, you can always take a 4-foot level or whatever, level up all of your sawhorses to where you know they're in the same plane that way too. For what I'm doing, they don't have to be level, but they do need to be flat. So I'll go ahead and I'm going to set a sheet of plywood on top. I've used this plywood before for doing some painting and stuff, so it's a little bit ugly, but it's treated 1/2-inch plywood, so it'll work. All right, I have set the sheet of plywood on the sawhorses. We know that they are in the same plane from end to end, but the next thing we need to do is make sure that the plywood is laying flat before we get to screwing and gluing our boards to it. Now, this one has a little bit of a bow up. We can help with that by spreading our sawhorses. That will help to take out the bow and or adding weight. And I have these handy dandy stainless steel fittings that I've used on some dam repairs that are left over. They're about 10 pounds each. So I can eyeball across things and lay these into a position to take the bow out of the lumber and get it to where it is close to being perfectly flat. The next thing I'll end up doing is laying in the 5 boards that I have cut for this. They're both too long and too wide they'll be, but I'll end up cutting everything at the end and making it to fit the plywood. Now, there is a lot to be discussed, I suppose, if you want to learn to do this yourself. And there's way too much to do in just a single episode, so I'm going to go ahead and break this one up, and we'll start the assembly in another episode. Thanks for being with me here today in this one, and stick around next week, and I'll be back with some assembly.